What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, the incomparable Zach Jones. And guys, it's that time, the long-awaited return of Daredevil. That's right, Daredevil Born Again. So today I will be reviewing episode 1 and 2 of Daredevil Born Again. I will review and recap them. Before I get into things, guys, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to the YouTube channel, like, comments, review, all that good stuff. If you like, you can listen in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. And you can follow me on social media on Twitter or Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. All right, guys. I got my Daredevil shirt. I got my cool Chris Somney Daredevil poster in the background. So let's do this. Actually, speaking of posters, you can probably see, guys, that overall, like, Batman's my guy. But on the Marvel side of things, I gotta say, I think I do lean towards Daredevil being my favorite. So I was pretty excited for the return of Daredevil. Also, I really enjoyed the previous Netflix era of Daredevil. I remember that first season I thought was fantastic. Season 2, a little rougher. I remember I really liked the Punisher stuff, but the Elektra Hand part of the season less so. And then the third season I'm a little fuzzy on, but I do remember very much liking it. So very strong showing. And this show has had some development issues. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was a story where they had filmed and completed like several episodes of this show, and then they were like, no, we need to retool things. And I think before they retooled things, that like Foggy and Karen weren't going to be a part of the show at all. And sadly, it might still be that way. We'll get into that in just a second. So what did I think of these first two episodes? Well, I'm going to give these first two episodes a 6.8 out of 10. Generally speaking, I like them, but I do, guys, I can't lie, I have some concerns, and it's making me not be as immediately smitten with this incarnation of the show as I was the original Netflix incarnation of the show. So let's get into those things right off the top. So I can't really talk about these without spoilers, so just spoilers ahoy right out of the gate. So one thing I noticed, first of all, is the action. At least in this first episode, there's a big fight at the beginning, and I can see right away the action is much more heightened than it was in the original show. It seems almost more, I don't know if comic booky is the right word, but a little more exaggerated, over the top. And I gotta say, I didn't like it nearly as much. I think the action in the original Netflix Daredevil was one of the pluses. Like, they had the cool hallway fight scene, and almost like every season they had a very cool, extended fight scene. But they were done much more practically and came off much better. This fight, in the beginning with him and Bullseye, first of all, it looks like there's a lot of CG inserted. And it just didn't. I don't know if it's actually cheaper because of those, I'm guessing, CG that's added, but it looks a lot cheaper than the fighting in the original show. And so I got to say, that's a downgrade to me. So Marvel, I know you got the money. So going forward, please, more practical effects and fights in Daredevil, please. Because, listen, a lot of Marvel stuff has to have a lot of CGI and green screen. Obviously, if you have the Hulk on screen, it's all, CG. But Daredevil, in the more street level characters, you have the opportunity to actually make, a more grounded show. So give us, practical effects, and cool fights. Don't add in all these weird CGI looking bells and whistles. It doesn't do it justice. So I was not a fan of this fight in the beginning. I thought it just paled in comparison to the fights in the original Netflix incarnation of the show. Also, not the biggest thing, but I wrote down less cool intro. So if you go back and watch the intro to the old Daredevil show, but first of all, the song, the instrumental song in the original Daredevil is awesome. And here they do like kind of a remix of it. Like there's beats of that old song, but they make it different. And it's just not as good. I like sometimes I'm kind of, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And the intro was so good. As far as like the visuals here, like I think I still prefer like the the blood dripping down the like cityscapes of the original show, but here it was like the stuff busting into rubble, and then he's Daredevil's built back out of the rubble. It's cool enough, but they really should have stuck with the original song. It was just so much better. Okay. So this is a biggie for me that I took issue with here. So I remember when they announced like the retooling and the actors who played Foggy and Karen were coming back, everybody was excited. And so they kill Foggy right off the bat. Now, I have mixed feelings about this because on one hand, I have criticized Marvel in the past of all their stuff feeling like there's no stakes and like nobody can die. And so I'm not necessarily, poo-pooing the choice to kill Foggy. But doing it this early, I think, was a mistake, especially since, the show hasn't been on the air for many years. I think if you were going to make the choice to kill Foggy, you should have done it like halfway through the season. Like reintroduce us to that character, make us invested in him, so that when you do kill him off, it means more. Here, it was just so abrupt that I thought it was wasted potential. And also, I'm also a fan of the Daredevil comics. I think it's one of the more consistent quality books that Marvel puts out. It has been for a long time. And there's been times, too, where, like, they'll have, Foggy go away a while. And I just think the Daredevil stories with Foggy tend to be stronger than those without. But again, I do like it's a universe with real stakes to it. I just think it was a shame that they did it this early. The actor wasn't given basically nothing to do. And also and the thing is, there probably are, I imagine most people watching this show have probably seen the Netflix show, but I assume there's probably still going to be some people who haven't. And so for those people, they have zero investment in the Foggy character. So they're going to feel nothing. So, like I said, if they were going to kill him, I think they should have done it like 5 episodes in or something, get us reinvested into that character. And the other thing is, so Deborah and Woll, who plays Karen, I'm a big fan of hers, actually. I think she's great. And within this episode, Foggy dies and she just moves to San Francisco. Now, I don't know how the rest of the season's going to go. Maybe we will get more of her. But I swear, if it's just like we don't get any more of her this season, I'm going to be bummed. Because that's just a waste of a great actress and a great character. And it's just like, because I remember people being genuinely excited when they heard these characters are coming back. I was one of them. And then it's just like, oh, one's dead, one's gone. It's like, I don't know. It just rub me the wrong way, if you will. I don't know what you guys think, but I think it was kind of a waste of those characters. Again, we still have hope for the Karen character. Hopefully they, who knows, maybe maybe we don't see her this season, but then she ends up, or we'll get a season where Daredevil moves to San Francisco like he did during the Mark Waid Chris Zombie run in the comic books. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know, but I just think it was a misuse of those characters. And then the other thing that I kind of noted, which I wonder, what, we seem to be living in a very politics obsessed world right now. And like, it wasn't subtle here, I'm fine with this, but I'm just curious how it's going to play with a lot of people. Is the parallels between Wilson Fisk and Donald Trump, are very obvious in this show. Wilson Fisk running for mayor. He's this, famous New York guy, successful, businessman, but widely known to be involved in shady dealings. And there's people who are rightfully abhorred, find it abhorrent that he's running politics. Like, what are we doing even considering this guy? And then there's a lot of people that are like, well, he's strong and he's assertive and he gets things done. And whether you like him or not, that's the kind of guy we need. And so direct parallels between him and Donald Trump. So I'm just curious to see what the reaction to certain people on both sides of the political spectrum will be that watch the show, and maybe they'll be oblivious to it, but I don't see how you can. Very, very obvious parallels. So yeah, I think those are my kind of big, takeaways from these first two episodes. Action was a downgrade. Intro was a downgrade. Karen and Foggy not used well, and then the parallels to our universe with the Wilson Fisk Trump comparisons. Okay, so that's my kind of surfacey thoughts. But guys, let's dig in deep and let's get into the recap of the episodes. So episode 1 was entitled Heaven's Half Hour. So this starts off with Matt, Karen, and Foggy. They just had a day at work in the office. They come out, they're walking down the street, they're reminiscing about the city's past. And they have a little exposition here. They're setting the stage. So apparently this version of New York is having a lot of cuts when it comes to the police. A lot of police and law enforcement are being cut. And Matt mentions that even Cherry is retiring. Now, this Cherry character is going to play a big part in seemingly in this version of the show. I gotta say, I don't know if Cherry is based on a comic book character. I've read the comic books. For those who read them since the Brian Michael Bendis era, so quite a while now. And if I've read stories with this Cherry character, I don't remember him. So not entirely sure if he's original to this or from the comics. But they go to Josie's bar, which was also heavily featured in the Netflix show. It's their favorite bar, and they're having this retirement party for this guy named Cherry. There seems to be some romantic playfulness between Karen and Matt, where I think she asked if he wants to get out of there, and he's like, "Oh, a friend shouldn't ask another friend that, so they're playing off this thing. And we're like, are they friends? Are they more than friends? Type of thing. As a little foreshadowing, on a TV screen in the bar, we see White Tiger busting up a bodega robbery. There's a female detective, Detective Kim, who tells Cherry that her opinion on vigilantes are basically, hey, just like any other group, there's good ones and bad ones. Some are legitimately trying to do good, and others are just kind of, self-serving of their own wants and desires and aren't really, you know, uh, in it for justice at all. Okay, Foggy ends up flirting with a woman who works for the DA named Kirsten McDuffie. And so anyone who has read the Mark Waid, Chris Somney run in the comics will know that Kirsten McDuffie is in that run, and she is a love interest of Matt. So it'll be interesting to see if she becomes a love interest of him in this show. So Matt, with a super hearing, he hears Foggy on the phone with a client of his named Benny, and Benny seems to be in some trouble. He thinks that somebody is coming to hurt him. And so we get a quick glimpse of Bullseye's hand. Of course, he has custom Bullseye gloves with a bullseye on the gloves. So spare no expense when you're a villain. You got to get your brand out there. And he kills a fly with a paperclip because, of course, that's Bullseye's thing, killing things with paperclips. So Matt asks Foggy, so this Benny guy, Foggy's putting him up in his own apartment to help keep him safe. And Matt's like, why didn't you tell me, that this guy's been getting threats and whatever? And Foggy says, well, he didn't want to give Matt the excuse to be Daredevil again, because that's always kind of their dynamic. Like, Foggy knows that being Daredevil is very destructive to Matt, himself, everyone he loves. So Matt suits up and he goes to help Benny because apparently Foggy says he just lives like blocks away from the bar. But then what we find out is that Bullseye was trying to, it seems like, distract Daredevil away so that he could harm Foggy and Karen. So he shoots Foggy through the chest. He also snipes like 2 other guys there. Now the thing is, though, he's such a good shot that he could have just sniped Foggy and Karen through the head right there, but he didn't. And so I guess it could explain it away that he wants to, really cause them pain or pain and suffering rather than a quick death or something. But he could have just taken him out. But anyway, he shoots Foggy, and then he almost shoots Karen, pulls the gun on her. But Matt swings in the nick of time, knocks him through the window of Josie's, and they begin to fight. And again, lots of kind of cheap-looking effects going on here. I think there's some CG manipulation of them in the fight, and I'm curious what you guys think, because to me, this just did not look great, in my opinion. But they have this fight. I do like that during the fight, like, Bullseye gets a wind knocked out of him. So he ends up, like, killing a couple civilians to distract Matt so he can gain some distance. But Matt eventually catches up to him, and they fight up the stairway. Like, Bullseye puts a bunch of knives into Daredevil, and they end up fighting onto the roof of the building. At the same time, like, Karen is trying to, like, put pressure on Foggy's wounds, but he slips away and he dies. And Matt gets the best of Bullseye on the top of the building. He's got him down, and he hears that Foggy has died. So Matt throws Bullseye off the building to the ground below. He also stupidly takes off his mask and throws it off the building, and we get this, like, close up of the mask falling. It's Daredevil no more. He's given it up. Um, but Cherry sees him with the mask off, which I guess gives him an in. Um, but again, this happens far too often. I found it especially egregious in the what was it, the Spider-Man No Way Home, where like they're just always constantly taking off their masks. And like I get it, but come on, you can talk through your mask and we'll get it. We don't need to always see the actor's face. Um, so yeah, he's done being Daredevil, and so we do a hard cut to 1 year later. There's a news report that says there's currently a race for mayor, so it's setting the stage. So now we go over to Vanessa Fisk, Wilson Fisk's wife, and she is basically running a meeting between the big five crime families of the city. But the meeting is interrupted by the return of the kingpin, Wilson Fisk. Vanessa seems kind of irritated that he broke up the meeting, and also that he went away for so long. Of course, he got injured by Echo, and in the Echo show, we saw that he, went there. By the way, another thing that annoys me is so he got like shot in the eye, but there's no evidence of him being like scarred, or they don't mention that, oh, now he has a glass eye or a fake eye. Like I feel like he should have some visible damage from that. But also, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on this channel, but I really hated the season finale of Hawkeye because the way Wilson Fisk was portrayed in that episode, he basically had to be a metahuman, superhuman. And that's how like heightened it was. And I hate that because like I like the idea of he's just this big, strong guy, but he was so over the top in Hawkeye that it was unbelievable that he was just a normal guy. And like he should be a big, strong guy, but he should still just be a guy who can be beaten. You know what I mean? And but between Hawkeye and Echo, he seems invincible. He seems like a metahuman to me. Vanessa asks how long he will be back, and he says for as long as she will have him. He said he had to leave to put himself back together. He says he came back for two reasons. One is his undying love for Vanessa, and the second is what he can do for New York City. And he mentions that he has the 25,000 signatures he needs or whatever. And he doesn't say it there, but we all know, it's because he's running for mayor. So throughout these episodes, we get these kind of first person, like on the street news segments from this girl named BB Urich. It's a BB report. So, we can put it together. She's some relation of Ben Urich. And we'll find out that she's his niece later on. But she's interviewing people about crime in the city. And we see a lot of the New York citizens want Daredevil back. So now that it's 1 year later, we find out that Matt is now partners with Kirsten McDuffie in a new law firm. And we find out that Matt is going to make a statement at Bullseye sentencing. So he goes to court, and in the middle of his statement, Karen enters the courtroom. Matt urges the court to punish Bullseye to the fullest extent of the law. And so Bullseye is sentenced to life in prison without possibility of parole. Now, the look on Matt's face during this scene, to me, he looked like angry. So I'm wondering if he was hoping for the death penalty in Bullseye's case. Like, he doesn't really mention it, but I don't know if that's from his reaction, maybe what we were supposed to put together. I'm not sure. But that would actually make sense because he is kind of, that's the whole thing with him and Punisher was their conflict. Punisher kills, Daredevil doesn't. So I don't know. Maybe I misread it. Maybe he was happy that Bullseye got put away for life. So he has a conversation outside the courtroom with Karen, and here we find out that Karen moved to San Francisco. Again, I just I don't like that. I like Deborah and Woll as an actress. I like Karen as a character, and I want to see more of her. I don't want her to she's gone. And so I figure that was their way of writing her off for the majority, if not the rest of this season. But we'll see. Maybe not. Matt argues with Karen because he says she's been avoiding him. He's tried calling. She hasn't returned his calls. But she kind of blames him. She says, she tried to right after Foggy died and he was standoffish. And he says, of course he was, She ends up asking him about Daredevil. And he says he made a promise to himself to let the system handle things. And that's not him anymore. He's not Daredevil. But before she leaves, Karen gives Matt one of the horns off of his costume that she saved. Back at home, Matt hears that Fisk is now running for mayor and that he's running on an anti-vigilante platform. We're introduced to one of his campaign, well, actually a couple of them, but one of them is this guy named Daniel Blake. And he really sucks up to Wilson Fisk, telling him how excited he is and how he's going to win and everything. Okay, I noted here what I talked about earlier, where they make a lot of parallels between Wilson Fisk running for mayor and Donald Trump running for president. And, I don't know if they do it here a little bit, but they'll have comments from people off the street that echo sentiments of people on the left and the right do, in our world about Donald Trump. So Kirsten tells Matt, hey, we got a prospective client that I want you to meet with at a coffee shop. So he goes there and he meets this person named Heather, but they find out that it was all a ruse and Kirsten set them up on a date. But they end up having a good time and it's clear that they like each other. And then Matt confronts Kirsten, says that's not cool, and they just kind of have this witty banter where she says, "Come on, man, you need this, you need to have a relationship." So Matt, Detective Cherry comes to the office, and we find out that Matt has hired him to investigate Wilson Fisk because he knows he's up to something. But he says he has not found any evidence of wrongdoing. One thing I should have mentioned earlier was when Wilson and Vanessa were talking, he told her that, hey, I need to make sure, I can't be seen linked to anything criminal. Talking about the mob business. So he's like, whatever you do, it can't lead back to me, that sort of thing. Matt says that if they elect Fisk, the city will be getting what they deserve. And Cherry, tells him, hey, that sounds cynical. And he's basically like, yeah, either that or I wised up, Also, that sentiment there parallels our world. I think a lot of people on the left are thinking that, about people on the right who voted for Donald Trump. So now there's another street report with B.B. Urich. And yes, some people hate the Kingpin and some people love him. So we're getting both sides of the aisle there. Matt confronts the king, Fisk, and he agrees to have a conversation with him at a diner. So I like this. It's almost reminiscent of like that Robert De Niro, Al Pacino visit in Heat at the diner there. This kind of tense conversation between these two guys. Matt notes that, hey, the Kingpin looks like you've lost some weight and gained some muscle. He can tell because of his footsteps, apparently. Wilson asks if he has kids. Matt says no. He's like, do you? He's like, no. But I did mentor somebody once, and it was almost like that, referring to Echo. And Matt, to just kind of, elbow him, goes, hey, didn't she, like, shoot you in the face, Wilson promises that he had nothing to do with Foggy's death. He also promises that he is no longer the kingpin of crime. Matt says he can't shake the feeling that Wilson is gaming the system. Wilson says he's going to make the city a better place, and he asks Matt why he stopped being Daredevil. Matt says that when Foggy was killed, a line was crossed, and he thought he lost the privilege. So, of course, he's referring to he lost his temper. He threw Bullseye off the building. And by the way, Bullseye, he must be made for it tough to survive that fall. But I like that. He's like, hey, I could see I crossed the line. Couldn't trust myself to be Daredevil any longer. Wilson says that he heard about Matt trying to kill Bullseye, and he says that it's hard to overcome a violent nature. Matt tells Wilson that if he, he's like, I really hope you have changed, but I'm going to be keeping an eye on you. And if you step out of line, I will be there. And Wilson asks, hey, who's that warning coming from? Is it you or is it Daredevil? Wilson says that he will be mayor and that there will not be people running around in silly costumes and that the rule of law will prevail. And he warns Matt that if he goes back to any of his old activities, there will be consequences. So they're definitely setting the stage for the future. I gotta say, one thing that's weird about Daredevil, the next Netflix show into this one, is like Kingpin has been the big bad the whole time. There's other lesser enemies, but he's the big bad the whole time. And so I think it says something about him as a character that, he's interesting enough to always be serving in that role. And it's not like every season there's a new big bad, It's he's a good character, and D'Onofrio plays him very well. So Matt goes on another date with Heather, and while they are walking down the street with his super hearing, he hears the news that all of us could predict, because otherwise there's no story here. Wilson Fisk has indeed been elected mayor. Now we get another conversation between Wilson and Vanessa. He tells her that he knows about Adam. So with context, presumably this is a guy she's having an affair with, and he knows about it. She asks him, or tells him, to promise not to kill this Adam guy. And he does, and he says he's not that guy anymore. Now, I'm guessing that even if he doesn't kill him, he is going to make this Adam guy's life a living hell throughout this season. Things are not going to end well for Adam, I can guarantee. So Matt's on the street, and all of Wilson's supporters are cheering on the street. And so he's kind of walking through them, slow motion walk through these supporters. Wilson's on top of a skyscraper overlooking everything. Matt in the distance hears a woman screaming for help. And then all the there's a bunch of lights going on and stuff, just celebration for Wilson, and a red light hits him. Half of his face is red, and the other half isn't. Very very symbolic of the fight inside of him between his Daredevil side and his Matt Murdock side. And so that's where we end episode 1. Pretty good episode. Overall, I did like these episodes. It's just those picadillos I had did put a damper on it, but I am curious. I'm still excited for the show going forward and seeing what it can do. So let's get into episode 2, guys. This episode is called Optics. So in a mayoral address on New Year's Eve, Wilson references both the Punisher and Spider-Man, as well as Daredevil. So I thought that was interesting. Matt can hear people that both love and hate Wilson. He's getting both sides of it with the super hearing. We cut to a Spanish-speaking man he sees a guy on a subway platform being beaten up by these two guys. So he intervenes to help this guy. One of the men end up lunging at him, and he steps aside or whatever. This guy just gets creamed by a subway. And so the other guy gets out a badge, and we find out that he and the guy that died are NYPD officers. And, he's like, freeze, don't move. So we get another BB report about how people feel about Daredevil. Wilson has a meeting with one of his campaign managers, and she notices that he has bloody knuckles. She tells him that he has to meet with a bunch of people, that he doesn't really want to meet with, and these people don't like him at all. But it's important for optics' sake. She also tells him that Vanessa's resistance to be included more in the campaign is hurting him with more traditional voters. And so he tells her that, Vanessa and him are having issues right now, but he's going to work on their relationship. So Matt's at the police station, on business for one of his clients. But he can hear with his hearing in the other room that Hector, or the guy from the platform, is, kind of being beaten by the cops, and they're trying to coerce a confession out of him. So Matt goes to help this guy. So we find out his name is Hector Ayelet. And Matt listens to his side of the story, and he can tell that he's telling the truth about what happened on the subway platform. But Matt can also sense that he's holding back some piece of information. And Matt agrees. The guy's like, I can't afford you. And Matt's like, don't worry about that. He's going to do it for free. So now back to Wilson. Wilson scores political points by getting a large pothole filled. Honestly, I think that's all mayors really need to do is fix the potholes, and your approval rating would go sky high. I think that's the case in at least most American cities. So Kirsten now back at the office. Kirsten argues with Matt about taking Hector on as a client. It's dodgy because he's seen as a cop killer by a lot of people, and she thinks it's going to be a hard case to win. But Matt reminds her, hey, we formed this partnership, this law firm, to take on the hard cases, and so she agrees. Detective Cherry is there, and he tells Matt that he could find no proof that there was another guy on the subway platform, and that if he takes the case, it's going to look like Matt is like anti-police, anti-NYPD. But Matt, tells Cherry, hey, I know Hector was telling the truth. I know this other guy on the platform existed, so please find him. But Matt also tells him to do a thorough background check on Hector, because he's like, I can tell there's something about his story that doesn't track, or that he's hiding something, Matt goes outside, and the press are all over him, hounding him about how he's representing a cop killer. So the prosecuting attorney is a man named Hochberg. He has the code name, or the nickname Hawk, rather. And the judge denies bail to Hector before Matt can even give an opening statement. So it seems like the judge here is kind of unreasonable. However, there will be a scene later on where the judge kind of rules in favor of Matt. So, there is some fairness, it seems. Like, because at first I got the sense that, this judge is probably just like, we're going to find out he's bought and paid for by Kingpin, and that might end up being the case. Also, I should have mentioned that Wilson, there was a line earlier when Wilson was his campaign manager that he was going to meet with this Hochberg guy. So there's probably going to end up being some collusion there. So BB Yerk convinces Daniel Blake to give her access to Wilson for an interview. And here's where we find out that BB is Ben Yerk's niece. Now, I told you that I thought they got rid of Foggy too fast. I also think they got rid of Ben Urich too fast, because Ben Urich was killed off, I believe, towards the end of season 1. And I think he is a really great character. I think they should have kept him around longer than they did. But alas, they kill people on this show. So BB tells Wilson that the police commissioner, Gallo, is threatening to retire, which would put him in a bind. Because basically Gallo is this guy who is beloved by the rank and file police. And she's like, if you oppose, or if that happens, the rank and file police are going to oppose you, and they're going to support Gallo. And she tells him that the police are already understaffed, and that if he loses the support of the cops, he loses the city. She also tries to ask about Vanessa, but Wilson says that he's out of time, so he doesn't want to talk about Vanessa here. This line was curious, and I don't know what to make of it. Wilson tells Daniel that BB is used to being underestimated, and that they can use that. So I'm not sure exactly what that entails, but I did find that line interesting. Like, is he going to try to manipulate her for his own purposes? I don't know. Okay, so Heather has a book signing. So the woman Matt is dating, she's a therapist. We found that out earlier. I didn't mention it. But here we find out she's actually kind of a big deal therapist. And she wrote a book about therapy. And she's doing a book signing. And so this creepy guy comes up and has her sign the book, and asks her if she has an opening for him to be a client of hers. And so she gives her card to him or whatever. Now, I think the rumor is that the villain, is it Muse, is going to be in this season. And I'm wondering if this is him. It seems like, he's got to play a part. So, I'm thinking this guy will be a villain of some sort, but we'll see. And then one of Wilson's campaign advisors also gets her to sign a copy of the book. So, this tells me that Wilson is keeping tabs on Matt. We'll find out later that he's going to use this Heather woman as his like marriage counselor. But I also think he's trying to, he wants something he can use against Matt should Matt cause him trouble in the future. So Wilson meets with Commissioner Gallo at I believe the funeral of the cop that was killed by the subway train. And this Gallo guy, he knows Wilson's no good. He tells him that he's a monster trying to rewrite his legacy, but once a thug, always a thug. And he even refers to him like dismissively as Kingpin, He's like, I know what you are, basically. So Kirsten and Cherry go to visit Hector's wife. And she tells Hector's wife that, hey, it's important that you're seen in court. It'll help Hector look, I guess, more sympathetic to a jury or whatever. Cherry asks if he can go get Hector's suit in his bedroom for the court appearance, and his wife agrees. But he also wants to search the room for clues about Hector. And boy, does he find one. He finds the white tiger costume in Hector's bedroom. I gotta say, I'm not super familiar with the white tiger character. I know in more recent years that character has been a girl, like a teenage girl gets a suit. And I know there's also like a talisman that goes along with it that gives power. For the purpose of this show, I wish they would do away with that, but it doesn't seem like they are because he keeps mentioning the talisman, so I'm thinking like it has to do with giving him power. But I'd rather him just be like a good martial artist in the white tiger suit rather than actually having some sort of super power from the magical talisman, So Cherry calls Matt to let him know what he found out, and while Matt is on another date with Heather. So Matt goes to the prison and he confronts Hector about being White Tiger. And Hector basically says, hey, I had to do something. People were going missing and nobody was due and nobody cared. And I kind of wonder if we'll find out that is a lead into like Muse or whatever, like the people that are missing were taken by him or, a villain of some sort, And he also says, it's not like Daredevil was around anymore. So, he was compelled to be White Tiger. He mentions, or Matt's like, hey, you look in pretty rough shape. And he's like, yeah, I'm not doing well in here, So people are like, he's getting beat up. And so Matt says he'll try to find a way to help him out. So Gallo goes to Wilson's office to give him his resignation. And Wilson basically threatens his family. He shows him this picture he took where, like, I guess this Gallo guy maybe even has like a secret kid out of wedlock or something, and that's what the picture is. So, I guess he could threaten either to expose that or harm him, whatever. And so Gallo is like, fine, you win, I'll stay. But he's also like, be careful what you wish for. So, maybe he'll end up doing something down the line to help Daredevil or something. So Matt gets the judge to disallow Hector, the fact that Hector is White Tiger. He gets the judge to agree not to allow that as evidence, which of course upsets Hawk. He's like, that's very important. But it at least does show that the judge is like not completely on Hawk's side, Cherry has a meeting with Matt and tells him he cannot find the other guy that was on the subway platform. He also tells Matt that his judgment may be cloudy because of his past as Daredevil. Heather calls Matt and she breaks a date with him. And we find out that she is now the therapist or marriage counselor for Wilson and Vanessa. And they basically have a conversation where, like, Vanessa's like, she was upset Wilson left for that long time, but she kind of thrived. She became the leader of the business. She did very well. And, now she doesn't kind of know what to feel about Wilson coming back. And, Wilson, his side of the story is, hey, I was hurt. I had to go find myself, get myself right. But now that I'm back, I want to be back together with my wife. So I got to say, this part wasn't told, I think, super clearly. But I think what happened is Matt tracked down the cop that was on the subway platform that arrested Hector and kind of followed him and listened in on him, and eventually found out that guy was going, track down the guy that was on the subway platform and was going to eliminate him, kill him off. So Matt rushes over to this guy's apartment, and he's like, hey, I need you to testify. Guys are coming to kill you, and tells him to escape down the fire escape. And he also tells him that Cherry guy will pick him up and bring him to safety. So that cop and another guy enter the apartment, and Matt's tells him he's gone. So this guy, he slams Matt against a wall, and it does kind of have a close-up. We can see he's got a tattoo on his wrist. I'm not sure exactly what that's supposed to signify. He must be a part of some sort of group, but I'm not sure which. I didn't freeze frame it and be like, oh, can I find that symbol, and is it established in Marvel Comics? I didn't go that far, so if anybody did, let me know. But yeah, I'm not sure. These guys proceed to, beat Matt up, and I think he just kind of takes the beating because, he doesn't want them to know what he's capable of. But then they put a gun to his head. They're going to kill him. So he does what he has to do, and we end this episode with him viciously beating these guys up, bone breaking through the skin type of stuff. So I will say I'm glad that this isn't a neutered, real PG version of Daredevil, that they're still letting them be, a mature rated show like it was on Netflix. As far as the violence, anyway. So yeah, there we have it. So yeah, I don't want to. Some of the stuff I said, maybe people thought I was a little too negative. I want to say I do like these episodes. It's just those things I noted in the beginning. The problem I have is I think they're going to be pervasive problems. Obviously, that intro is not going to change. Which, again, that's not a big deal. But Foggy is gone. I don't think Karen is going to play a big part in this season, at least. We'll see. And again, the action, which was one of the highlights of the Netflix incarnation, at least in this first episode, a big downgrade. And I'm guessing they're going to be consistent with that style in the fights going forward, which is disappointing. But as far as the characters, the dialogue, that was all good. So I'm still very much looking forward to what this season has in store. But guys, what did you think? Please comment down below and let me know. As I mentioned on the top, please subscribe to the channel. Please like and subscribe and comment and give positive reviews. Also, like I said, you can listen in audio form on your podcast catcher of choice. And you can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. But guys, until next time, I hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.